threw the ball to first base, thinking it was in fair play. Chapman, in immense pain, stumbled to take his base, but collapsed.
Ray Chapman's story is one of the most heartbreaking in baseball history. On August 16, 1920, the Cleveland Indians shortstop faced Yankees pitcher Carl Mays in New York, where, in the fading light and using a scuffed, hard-to-see ball, he was struck in the head and tragically passed away the next day, the only MLB player to die from an on-field injury. His death shocked fans and players alike, leading to significant rule changes, such as replacing dirty balls to ensure visibility, a practice that ultimately brought about the clean ball era. But before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel. On August 16, 1920, baseball experienced one of its saddest days. Ray Chapman, the Cleveland Indians' beloved shortstop, stepped up to bat against the New York Yankees at the iconic Polo Grounds in New York City. It seemed like an ordinary summer day for fans and players alike, until everything changed in a single, tragic moment. The Yankees' Carl Mays was on the mound. Known for his unique submarine pitching style, Mays threw from a low sidearm angle, making his pitches tricky to follow, especially in the dimming evening light. Back then, clean white baseballs weren't standard. Pitchers often dirtied them up, using soil, licorice, tobacco juice, anything to scuff the ball's surface and add movement. By late innings, those balls were dark, misshapen, and tough to see. For Chapman, facing one of those pitches would be life-changing. As Mays released the pitch, witnesses said Chapman didn't even flinch. He didn't see it coming. In an instant, the ball struck his head with a chilling crack that some players mistook for a hit off the bat. Mays, thinking it was a foul, calmly fielded it and threw it to first. But as soon as he did, the horror set in. The home plate umpire, Tommy Connolly, saw blood trickling from Chapman's ear and quickly called for help. Teammates and rivals alike rushed to his side, with Tris Speaker leading the way. Chapman, trying to stand, muttered some final words. "I'm all right. Tell Mays not to worry. Ring Katie's ring." In those last moments, his thoughts were of his wife, Katie, back in Cleveland, and expecting their first child. It was a heart-wrenching reminder of the family and life he was leaving behind. Chapman was rushed to St. Lawrence Hospital nearby, but the damage was too extensive. Emergency surgery couldn't save him, and he passed away early the next morning. Katie, devastated, arrived later only to learn that her husband was gone. Cleveland grieved with her, and thousands came to his funeral to honor the man who'd left such a mark on their hearts. That season, his teammates wore black armbands in his memory, finding strength in their grief, and went on to win the 1920 World Series, dedicating their victory to their fallen friend. Chapman's passing led to real changes in baseball. The league began replacing dirty, damaged balls more frequently, a step toward making the game safer. He remains the only MLB player to die from an on-field injury, a somber reminder of the risks players faced. After Chapman's tragic death, emotions were running high among Cleveland's players, and understandably, some were bitter toward Carl Mays, the Yankees pitcher who threw the fatal pitch. Tensions were palpable, and the grief was heavy. But Cleveland's manager, Tris Speaker, quickly recognized that holding on to this anger wouldn't help anyone, neither his team nor the game they loved. In a call with Colonel T.L. Houston, one of the Yankees' part owners, Speaker assured him they do their best to keep any resentment in check. "It's our responsibility," he said, "not only as players but as stewards of the game, to let go of any bitterness." For Speaker, honoring Chapman's memory meant putting aside the anger and focusing on moving forward. He wanted his team to stay professional, respectful, and united, believing that baseball should bring people together, not drive them apart. In those raw, painful days, some fans and players called for Mays to be banned from baseball or even prosecuted, but no charges were ever filed. And while people wondered if Mays felt remorse, he publicly expressed how deeply he regretted what had happened, calling Chapman's death the most regrettable incident of my baseball career. "I would give anything if I could undo what has happened," he added, acknowledging the profound respect he had for Chapman. To cope with his own grief and guilt, Mays took a 10-day break from baseball and skipped the Yankees' next road trip to Cleveland, a city that now held painful memories. This break showed that even a fierce competitor like Mays needed time to process such a heartbreaking loss. His decision highlighted how sports, especially during tragic moments, isn't just about winning or losing, it's about humanity and coming to terms with shared pain. For both Mays and the Cleveland team, this was a moment that stretched far beyond baseball, leaving a lasting impact on everyone involved. Chapman's tragic death left a mark on baseball that went beyond grief. It pushed the league to make some big safety changes that shaped the game we know today. After that heartbreaking day, baseball officials realized they had to start thinking about player safety in ways they hadn't before. One of the first things they did was create a rule to keep the baseballs clean. Up until then, pitchers had all kinds of tricks, scuffing and even spitting on the ball to make it harder to hit, but it also made it tough to see. After Chapman's accident, the league put an end to this by requiring umpires to replace any dirty or damaged balls to ensure hitters could actually see what was coming at them. The league also banned spitball right after the 1920 season, a change that was both about safety and sanitation. While some pitchers were initially allowed to keep using it, the ban eventually took hold across the board, all in the name of protecting players. Chapman's story was also one of the key reasons people began advocating for batting helmets. For years, his memory was invoked in the push for head protection, but it took over 3 decades for helmets to finally become mandatory. Change was slow, and it's painful to think that, for many years, players still face the same dangers Chapman had. Yet when helmets became a permanent part of the game, it was a fitting tribute to Chapman, putting player safety at the forefront. The changes sparked by one tragic moment ultimately transformed baseball, showing that safety matters in a game that's not just about stats and scores, but about a community that learns and grows. Chapman's legacy is a reminder that every step taken to protect players is one worth taking. Chapman burst onto the major league scene in 1912 when he joined the Cleveland team, known back then as the Naps, and from the get-go, he was someone to watch. By 1918, he was leading the American League in runs scored and walks, showing his knack for getting on base and making things happen for his team. One of the things that set Chapman apart was his bunting. It's rare to find players who can consistently sacrifice themselves to advance a teammate, but Chapman did it so well that he still ranks 6th on the all-time list for sacrifice hits. In 1917, he set a single-season record with 67 sacrifices, a number that only a few players have come close to since, and among right-handed batters, only Stuffy McInnes managed more. Beyond his bunting, he was a defensive star, once leading the league in assists and showing his skill as a shortstop. Chapman's talents weren't limited to defense, though. He could hit too, batting .300 or better in 3 separate seasons, an impressive feat in any era. And let's talk about his speed. Chapman had wheels and wasn't afraid to use them, leading the team in stolen bases 4 times. In 1917, he stole a remarkable 52 bases, a record that stood untouched for the Indians until 1980. By 1920, Chapman was playing as well as ever, hitting .303 with 97 runs scored, and even Ty Cobb, a legendary competitor known for his intensity, considered him a friend. But off the field, there were hints that Chapman was at a turning point in his life. Just before the season began, he married Kathleen Daly, the daughter of a prominent Cleveland businessman. People began to wonder if he might step away from baseball to focus on the family business and start his own family. Fans were left asking, would he have broken more records? Would he have added more runs to his tally? We'll never know, and that's one of the hardest parts of his story. In memory of Ray Chapman, fans came together to create a tribute that would forever honor his legacy. Through their heartfelt donations, they funded a beautiful bronze plaque, a permanent reminder of the impact Chapman had on the game and the people who loved him. This plaque was originally hung at League Park, Cleveland's historic baseball venue, which holds so many memories for fans and players alike. For years, it was a cherished fixture at the stadium, a spot for fans to pause and remember the Cleveland shortstop whose life and career had left such an impression. Then in 1946, when the Indians moved to Cleveland Stadium, the plaque was carefully transferred as well. It was important that Chapman's legacy continue to be celebrated in the heart of Cleveland baseball, where countless games were played and where fans still gathered to cheer on their team. For decades, it remained a part of the stadium, standing as a tribute to Chapman and as a connection to Cleveland's history. But then, in the early 1970s, something strange happened. The plaque vanished. No one quite knew why or where it went. Its removal became an enduring mystery, and fans were left wondering what could have happened to this important tribute. It was a disappointing loss for those who wanted to keep Chapman's memory alive for generations of fans. Fortunately, after years of uncertainty, the story took a turn in 2007. The plaque was refurbished, beautifully restored to its original glory, and given a new home in Progressive Fields Heritage Park, a spot dedicated to honoring the rich history of Cleveland baseball. Heritage Park itself is a special place, filled with exhibits that showcase the team's legacy and the players who made lasting contributions over the years. By returning Chapman's plaque to a place where fans could once again see it, the team recognized his importance to Cleveland baseball and ensured his memory memory would be preserved for the future. Adding to this tribute, Chapman was inducted into the Cleveland Indians Hall of Fame in 2006. This induction held particular significance, as it was the team's first new class of inductees since 1972. It was a huge moment for fans who had long hoped to see Chapman officially celebrated alongside other legends of the game. His induction underscored just how important he was, not only to Cleveland, but also to baseball history as a whole. But Chapman's legacy doesn't stop there. Back in his hometown of Beaver Dam, Kentucky, a baseball field was dedicated in his name. This field now serves as a reminder of Chapman's roots, a place where young players can gather, learn the game, and draw inspiration from the story of a local hero who rose to the heights of the major leagues. It's a fitting tribute, allowing Chapman's legacy to inspire future players in the very community where his love for the game began. Through these tributes and honors, Chapman's memory continues to live on. Fans, players, and entire communities remember him, not only for his skill on the field, but also for the friendships he built and the character he showed. His legacy shines brightly as a reminder of the player he was and the impact he had on the game. Today, his story inspires countless young players and remains a cherished piece of baseball's history. Well, that brings us to the end of today's video. Make sure to subscribe to Baseball Icons so that you never miss an update.